Hey everyone, and welcome to Technically You. I know you've been interested in this for a while, and let me tell you, it's a fascinating topic.
Yeah, it really is. And what's so interesting about it is it's not just about, firewalls and algorithms and stuff like that. It's really about understanding the
People behind it, behind the attacks. Okay, so we're talking about cyber criminals, right? I have to admit, I always picture them as, hoodie clad figures in a dark room. Is that accurate?
it's funny you say that because the world of cyber criminals is actually surprisingly diverse.
Oh, really?
There's a whole spectrum out there, everything from lone hackers to organized crime rings, even nation states,
Wow.
each with their own motives and methods and levels of sophistication.
So not all of them are out to just steal my credit card number?
Not necessarily. Okay, let's start with the classic image of a cyber criminal. The hacker,
Right?
the one who breaks into digital spaces.
The stereotypical image, I guess. But I've also heard about these ethical hackers, people who hack for good. Is that a real thing?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, they're called white hat hackers.
White hat. Okay.
And companies actually hire them to find vulnerabilities in their systems before the bad guys can exploit them.
Interesting.
And so imagine them as like digital forensic detectives, probing defenses to strengthen security.
So it's almost like a controlled break-in to prevent a real break-in.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty clever. But I mean, doesn't that make the line between good and bad kind of blurry?
It definitely can. And that's where we get into this idea of gray hat hackers.
Gray hat?
They might expose vulnerabilities without permission, often to raise awareness or make a point.
Interesting.
It's ethically complex, because their actions, while potentially beneficial, might still be illegal.
Right.
It really makes you think about the motivations behind hacking, doesn't it?
It does. And I bet regardless of, their goals, whether they're white hat, gray hat, or black hat, I bet they all kind of exploit the same common weaknesses.
You're right. Things like weak passwords, outdated software, those are prime targets for any type of hacker.
Okay, speaking of vulnerabilities, let's move on to phishing. I know we cover this a lot in our podcasts, but it is the easiest point of entry for cyber criminals.
Yeah, phishing is a social engineering attack, meaning it relies on tricking people, not necessarily on technical prowess. So it's like a digital con game where criminals use fake emails or websites to steal your information.
Yeah, so like those emails that pretend to be from my bank asking for my login details?
Exactly.
Yeah, I've definitely seen those.
Or they might create fake websites that look almost identical to the real deal.
Oh, wow.
You might be fooled into entering your credit card number or social security number. And what makes phishing so effective is it often preys on our emotions. They might create a sense of urgency or exploit our trust in known brands.
That's true.
Yeah.
Especially around the holidays, I know I'm clicking on things a lot more impulsively.
Right?
But if I stop and actually think critically, I can usually spot those red flags,
Being mindful and skeptical is crucial.
right?
I always double check the sender's address, look for grammatical errors, hover over links to see the actual URL before clicking, and be wary the offer comes out of the blue.
Well, that's a good tip.
And if something seems too good to be true or creates a sense of panic, it probably is a phishing attempt.
Okay, good reminders. So we've talked about hackers and phishers. What other types of cyber criminals are out there?
Well, let's talk about hacktivists.
Hacktivists?
These are individuals or groups who use hacking techniques to promote a social or political cause. So they might deface websites, leak confidential information, or disrupt online services to make a statement.
So it's like digital activism, but instead of, we're organizing a protest, they're using code as their weapon of choice.
Yeah, you could say that.
I remember reading about a hacktivist group that targeted a surveillance company protesting their invasion of privacy. And it sparked this huge debate about, ethical hacking and government surveillance.
That's a great example. Hacktivists often target organizations they perceive as unethical or harmful. Their goal is to expose wrongdoing, embarrass their target, or disrupt their operations. But it raises a complex ethical question. Do the ends justify the means?
Yeah, that is tricky because they might be fighting for a cause they believe in, but, their methods are still illegal.
Right?
And who knows what kind of unintended consequences their actions could have.
Exactly. And the methods used by hacktivists can range from simple website defacement to sophisticated attacks that disrupt critical infrastructure. You know, it's important to remember that even if we agree with their message, their actions can have significant real-world consequences.
Man, this deep dive is making me rethink everything I thought I knew about cybercrime. It's a lot more nuanced than I initially thought it really is.
And we've only just begun.
Okay, so we've got lone hackers with different motivations and then these groups of hacktivists. Are there any other types of cybercriminals we should be aware of?
Definitely. Let's move on to organized cybercrime,
Okay.
a much more structured and profit-driven type of operation. Think of it like a traditional criminal syndicate, but operating in the digital world.
Oh, wow.
They often have specialized roles, hierarchies, and global networks.
So it's not just lone wolves in basements anymore. We're talking about serious criminal enterprises.
Exactly. They're in it for the money, and they're constantly evolving their tactics.
Shocking.
One example is ransomware, where they lock down computer systems and demand payment to restore access.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that.
They also engage in data theft, selling stolen information on the dark web, and even offering hacking services for hire.
So they're like digital mercenaries providing cybercrime as a service.
That's a good way to put it, and their targets are diverse, ranging from individuals to large corporations and even government agencies.
This is scary stuff. It sounds like something out of a summer spy movie.
It's real, and the impact can be devastating. Just think about the recent ransomware attack on a major hospital chain.
Oh, gosh, I remember that one.
It crippled their operations and put patients at risk. And it's not just about financial losses. They're also stealing personal data, intellectual property, and even military secrets.
And it makes you wonder where all that data ends up and who's profiting from it.
That's a great question, and one we'll explore further as we delve deeper into the world of cybercrime.
We're back. And man, that was a lot to unpack about organized cybercrime.
It was.
It's unsettling to know that these groups were operating like businesses with such a calculated approach to their criminal activities.
And unfortunately, they're only becoming increasingly sophisticated and harder to track down. They use advanced encryption, anonymizing tools, and they operate across international borders.
Right. So it sounds like we're talking about a different breed of criminal mastermind, not just some kid messing around in their basement.
Exactly. But speaking of kids in basements, that brings us to another type of cybercriminal. We should talk about script kiddies.
Script kiddies? The name makes them sound almost harmless.
Well, don't let the name fool you. While they might lack the technical skills of seasoned hackers, they can still cause significant damage.
Really, how?
Well, they often use pre-built hacking tools and scripts that are readily available online, essentially point-and-click cybercrime skills.
Wow.
Think of it like someone using a stolen weapon. They might not know how to build one, but they can still use it.
So even though they might not be, writing complex code, they can still exploit vulnerabilities and launch attacks.
Precisely. They might target unsecured Wi-Fi networks, deface websites, or launch denial of service attacks that overwhelm servers and disrupt online services. And because these tools are so readily available, the barrier to entry for cybercrime is lower than ever.
That's a scary thought.
It is, and that's why it's so important for everyone to take basic cybersecurity precautions. Even simple things like using strong passwords and updating software can make you a less appealing target for these script kiddies. And so...
Right, so we need to protect ourselves from both the highly skilled professionals and the opportunistic amateurs.
Exactly.
Okay. It paints a picture of a very complex threat landscape.
It does. And it gets even more complex when we factor in nation state actors.
Okay, now we're talking about the big leagues government-backed hackers. This sounds like the stuff of spy thrillers.
It's not as far-fetched as it sounds. Nation-state actors are cybercriminals who work on behalf of governments to conduct espionage, steal intellectual property, or disrupt critical infrastructure in other countries.
But we're talking about cyber warfare. Digital sabotage instead of bombs and missiles?
In a sense, yes. These government-backed teams have access to significant resources, advanced technology, highly skilled personnel. They can launch sophisticated attacks that are very difficult to detect and attribute.
I imagine the stakes must be incredibly high when we're talking about entire nations.
They are. A cyber attack on critical infrastructure like a power grid or a financial system could have devastating consequences, potentially crippling a country's economy or causing widespread chaos. And the lines between espionage, sabotage, and outright warfare are increasingly blurred in the cyber realm.
That's a sobering thought. So, what are some examples of these nation state cyber attacks? Are individuals ever targeted?
While individuals aren't typically the primary targets, there have been cases of dissidents or journalists being targeted with sophisticated spyware, essentially turning their own devices against them. More often, though, the targets are government agencies, research institutions, and corporations holding valuable intellectual property.
So, it was more about stealing secrets, gaining a competitive edge, or disrupting another country's operations.
Exactly. One well-known example is the Stuxnet worm, a highly sophisticated piece of malware believed to have been developed by the US and Israel to sabotage Iran's nuclear program. It caused significant damage to centrifuges used for uranium enrichment, setting back their nuclear ambitions.
Wow.
This was a clear demonstration of how cyber attacks can have very tangible, real-world impacts.
That's a chilling example. It really highlights the power of cyber weapons in the 21st century. Yeah, it's a bit overwhelming to think about all these threats, from lone hackers to organized crime, and now nation states.
I understand it's a complex and ever-evolving landscape, but don't despair. Just like there are bad actors out there are also good people working tirelessly to defend against these threats.
That's good to hear.
Yeah,
What about the threats that might come from within, though? We haven't even talked about insider threats.
you're right. Insider threats pose a significant challenge because they involve individuals who already have authorized access to systems.
Right.
It could be a disgruntled employee seeking revenge, someone lured by financial gain, or even an unintentional mistake that exposes sensitive information.
Yeah, it's unsettling to think that the threat might come from someone you trust. Like in that classic movie Office Space where the disgruntled employees plan a virus to siphon off fractions of pennies from transactions.
Well, that's a humorous example, but it does illustrates the point.
Right.
Insider threats can range from malicious acts of sabotage to unintentional data leaks.
So, how can organizations protect themselves from these inside jobs? Is it all about surveillance and distrusting your employees?
It's definitely a delicate balance. Implementing strong security measures is crucial, but so is fostering a positive work environment and addressing employee concerns. Things like robust access controls, regular security audits, and clear data handling policies can help mitigate risks. But equally important is creating a culture of security awareness and open communication.
So, it's not just about technology, it's about people and processes.
Absolutely. A comprehensive approach to cybersecurity involves addressing both the technical and the human elements.
This discussion is really making me think about all the different facets of cybersecurity. We've covered hackers, phishers, hacktivists, organized crime, script kiddies, and even nation-state actors.
And we haven't even discussed the most chilling type of all, cyber terrorists.
Okay, now we're venturing into some seriously dark territory. This sounds like something out of a dystopian novel.
Cyber terrorism is a real concern and a growing threat. What sets cyber terrorists apart from other cyber criminals is their goal to cause widespread fear and disruption, often motivated by extremist ideologies.
So instead of bombs and bullets, they're using malware and cyber attacks to spread chaos and terror.
Exactly. Imagine a coordinated attack on critical infrastructure like a power grid or a transportation system.
Yeah.
It could cause widespread panic, economic damage, and potentially even loss of life.
Yeah, that's a terrifying thought. Are there any real world examples of cyber terrorism, or is it mostly hypothetical?
While there haven't been any large-scale attacks that meet the strict definition of cyber terrorism, there have been numerous incidents that demonstrate the potential danger. For example, in 2020, a water treatment plant in Florida was targeted by hackers who attempted to increase the levels of lye in the water supply.
Oh my gosh.
Thankfully, the attack was detected and thwarted before any harm was done, but it highlighted the vulnerability of critical infrastructure to malicious cyber activity.
Wow, that's a chilling reminder that these threats are real and the consequences can be catastrophic. What's being done to combat cyber terrorism? I mean, is it even possible to stop these kinds of attacks?
It's a complex challenge, but governments and security agencies around the world are taking it very seriously. They're working together to share intelligence, develop countermeasures, and strengthen cybersecurity defenses.
So it sounds like a global effort is needed to combat a global threat.
Exactly. Cyber terrorism doesn't respect national borders. Just like traditional terrorism, it requires international cooperation and information sharing to effectively combat it.
This has been an incredible journey so far, exploring this dark underbelly of the cyber world. I have to admit, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed by all the different types of cyber criminals and their motives.
I understand it can be a lot to take in, but remember, knowledge is power. By understanding the threats, we can better protect ourselves and our digital lives.
You're right, and we haven't even gotten to the practical tips yet.
Right. We'll dive into those after a quick break. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to Technically You. We've covered a lot of ground today, haven't we?
We have.
Exploring this complex world of cybercrime and all the different players. You know, it's fascinating, but I have to admit, it's a little unsettling too.
I agree. It's definitely a reality check for all of us, highlighting just how important cybersecurity is in our increasingly digital lives. But remember, awareness is the first step towards protection.
That's a good point. So let's shift gears now and talk about what we can do to protect ourselves. After all that talk about cybercriminals, I'm feeling a little vulnerable.
I understand. But there are some simple yet effective steps we can all take to strengthen our cybersecurity posture.
Okay, I'm all ears. Give me those practical tips. What can I do right now to make myself less of a target?
First and foremost, as well always mentioned, keep your software and devices updated. It sounds simple, but a lot of people neglect this.
Yeah, that's true.
These updates often include crucial security patches that address known vulnerabilities.
So I shouldn't ignore those annoying pop-up reminders to update my operating system or apps?
Definitely not. Think of it like locking your car and home doors and windows. You know, it's a basic precaution that can prevent a lot of trouble.
Good analogy. Okay, what else?
Next up, strong passwords. I know it's cliche, but it's crucial. Use a combination of upper and lowercase letters, numbers, and symbols, and make each password unique for every account.
Okay. Unique and complex passwords. Got it. But how am I supposed to remember all of them? Writing them down on a sticky note doesn't seem very secure.
That's where a password manager comes in. It's like a digital vault for all your passwords, encrypted and accessible with a single master password. There are many reputable password managers available, offering features like secure password generation and automatic form filling. I believe Google offers one for free.
So I can generate super strong, unique passwords without having to memorize them all?
Exactly.
Okay, what's next on the list?
Enable multi-factor authentication, or FIDO2, whenever possible.
Multi-factor authentication.
This adds an extra layer of security by requiring you to enter a code from your phone or email in addition to your password when logging into sensitive accounts.
So even if someone steals my password, they can't get into my account without also having access to my phone.
Exactly. It's like having a double lock on your door, making it much harder for unauthorized access.
Got it. Update strong passwords. Multi-factor authentication. Anything else?
Yes. Be wary of phishing attempts. Remember, those are emails or messages designed to trick you into giving away your personal information. Don't click on links from unknown senders. Double-check URLs before entering any credentials. And be skeptical of offers that seem too good to be true.
Right. Trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. So, if a Nigerian prince emails me asking for my bank account details to transfer $1 million, I should probably just hit delete.
Exactly. Common sense and a healthy dose of skepticism go a long way in preventing phishing attacks.
Okay, all good advice. Anything else we should keep in mind?
One final tip, and this is crucial: back up your important data regularly.
Okay.
This way, if you do fall victim to a ransomware attack or experience a hardware failure, you won't lose your precious files.
So, cloud storage or an external hard drive.
Both are good options. The key is to have a backup plan in place and to test it periodically to make sure it's working properly.
Great advice. I'm definitely feeling more empowered now, knowing I have some control over my own cybersecurity.
That's what we want. Remember, it's an ongoing process. Stay informed, be proactive, and don't hesitate to seek guidance from trusted sources if you need help.
This discussion has been incredibly enlightening. We journeyed through the world of cybercriminals, understanding their motives and methods, and learned about practical steps we can take to protect ourselves. But as we wrap up, I want to leave our listener with something to ponder. We've talked about how cybercrime is constantly evolving. What skills or knowledge do you think will be essential for staying safe online in the future?
Well, that's a great question and one we should all be thinking about. It's clear that cybersecurity awareness and basic digital literacy will become increasingly important for everyone, not just tech experts.
Absolutely. It's like learning a new language, the language of the digital age. We need to be able to navigate this world safely and confidently.
Well said. And I believe critical thinking will be paramount. The ability to discern credible sources from misinformation, to question what we see online, and to think critically about the potential consequences of our actions in the digital realm will be essential for navigating this ever-evolving cyber landscape.
Those are great insights. So until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, and stay safe online. Thanks for joining us today.